out of curiosity, are we going to be recording? Is this going to be recorded? Cool. Sounds good. Thank you. So hi, everyone. If anyone here is just joining, I will put this link in the chat to our Jupyter Notebook, so you can feel free to download this during our conversation. Feel free to use the chat to ask us any questions. I don't know if participants are allowed to turn on their mics. If you can, feel free to do that. Okay, sounds good. You can totally feel free to cut us off, jump in, ask any questions you have. So my name's Ben. Kai's going to be presenting with me. I don't know where he is in your window. And we're going to be telling you a little bit about the Plebeian Algorithm, which is an algorithm to combat misinformation on social media. So during the presentation, like I said, make sure that you get that Jupyter Notebook going. If you don't want to use Jupyter Notebook, you want to use Python, that's fine, as long as you can get it going. So a little bit about us. Can you see my slide change, just out of curiosity?
Yep.
Yeah, there we go. Bit of a delay. All right. So I'm Ben Fedoruk. I'm 19 years old. I'm a researcher, so both of us are very young, still in school. So I've always been intrigued by theoretical concepts. I'm more of a theoretical-minded person. Early on in my undergraduate career, I'm in my undergraduate right now for mathematics and computer science, and I started to get into more of the philosophical ends of those fields, sort of combining those two fields of mathematics and computer science with philosophy, taking a very theoretical approach. So that's been my sort of background. Kai, I'll let you jump in and give your background.
For sure, yeah. So my name is Kai Fieseladisser. I'm also same age as Ben, so 19, living here in good old Thunder Bay, Ontario. And I'm also just completing my undergraduate currently, or at least I'm completing a course at the college here in Thunder Bay, specifically on mechanical engineering technician. That's just something I thought would be a good idea to get into, because I personally have been interested in technology for a long time. And I would like to, later on in my career, try to explore more with combining that with computer programming, and data science. Obviously, I'm not perhaps as involved in the data science aspect as Ben has been currently, but it's certainly something that's a bit of a passion of mine. And on the team, I suppose that would be a good idea, is kind of giving an idea as to what our roles were. So Ben was kind of the head of our team and kind of leading us through the whole process. And I was helping out with testing a lot of the prototypes and ideation phase of creating the algorithm itself.
Kai's big on the real world application, which is sort of why I made sure to emphasize that I was a theoretical person. Kai's a very more hands-on, applicable type of a person. So it was nice to have both sort of perspectives. We had quite a few perspectives on the team. So yeah, I'll switch slides there for you, Kai.
Thank you. It's actually not coming up for me, sorry.
Yeah, it's taking a minute.
Delaying a bit, yeah. Perfect. Okay, so just a quick introduction into, I suppose, why we went about creating the Plebeian algorithm. So this obviously came about from the propagation of misinformation on social media, especially from last year, right? With, or at least over the last year and a half or so, with COVID-19. There's been a kind of a huge surge of misinformed ideas and posts throughout different social media platforms. So we were given this kind of problem in a challenge that we were working on called the Big Data Challenge. And we went about trying to solve this within about a week or so. And our idea was, we first looked at what was already there, like what are some solutions that were already there to prevent this kind of misinformation. And we found that most social media platforms have a fairly heavy-handed and fairly inaccurate approach to addressing misinformation, right? It's just kind of as we actually cite in our paper, it's kind of a point and shoot kind of method, right? If the word COVID-19 is mentioned, if a vaccine is mentioned, oh, that's flagged as misinformed. Oh, we have to apply this link this to an article by the government and all this and that. So it was a fairly heavy-handed and fairly just, it wasn't very specific to what was happening and didn't really seem to be doing much about it, right? So we thought, well, we need to create a method that's a much more accurate, that can actually make real change, right? Now, the reason why this is an important problem to discuss is the fact that, yeah, okay, you could say, well, what's the problem with people spouting things that are just untrue? It doesn't really have many consequences. Well, it can, right? We've seen that with people being hesitant to take vaccines when it comes to COVID, right? For perhaps invalid reasons, or they're just not informed on what's actually there, perhaps the risks to their health from COVID, or perhaps even from other things, right? So it's very key to addressing these issues so people are well informed, right? And furthermore, when it comes to this idea of tackling misinformation on social media, one thing we always came back to was, what is misinformation? Because that can vary depending on the person you ask, and it can even vary on the day, right? Something that we had discovered in our research was, especially with something as new as COVID, the science is constantly changing on it. One day, wearing masks isn't really a good idea. The next day, that's the number one thing that can prevent you from catching the disease, right? So we also needed a solution that could kind of take that into consideration, right? The fact that knowledge is ever evolving and growing, and also something, and as I mentioned here, that doesn't infringe upon kind of the basic personal freedoms we have, such as freedom of expression, to just say what people believe to be true, right? So this is kind of how we got about it, and my colleague Ben will kind of address some of the specifics of the algorithm itself.
Yeah, so my apologies for a bit of a delay. I'm going to try and just keep talking and hope that you guys can catch up a little bit. So yeah, basically, Plebeian algorithm broken down into two key parts. There's the flag phase, there's the jury phase, and I'll go into them specifically in the coming slides. So basically, first off, I hope that you all like my little Star Wars reference down at the bottom. Essentially, the flag phase, what it does is it uses sentiment analysis to determine the positive or negative skewed sentiment of a piece of text. So typically that text is going to be gathered from somewhere like social media. I think it's important to note too that the Plebeian algorithm isn't limited to social media. It can be used really anywhere that text is used. It's essentially used to determine the validity of information, which is kind of a really neat thing to think about. So essentially, let's go through the flag phase. What's going to happen is, so as you can see, I have a little fake tweet up there. Just reads, the COVID-19 vaccines have microchips. So I've got this little circle in the bottom left-hand corner, and I'm going to move it around throughout this slide to show you what the algorithm is going to be looking at. So first, it's going to take a look through the text. It's going to cycle through each word in the text all the way to the end. It's then going to take a look at the statistics. So the number of retweets in this case, the number of quote tweets, the number of likes. And then it's going to assign a sentiment analysis score based on that information. Now you'll notice it doesn't look at who wrote the tweet. It doesn't look at like anything. It doesn't look at where they wrote the tweet. It doesn't look into any personal details. It just looks at what's in the tweet itself. So it keeps it I guess fair in that sense. It doesn't target specific people, which obviously is an issue when you're looking at something like machine learning, because things, algorithms can always be biased. So essentially, it's going to read through this tweet using the Vader sentiment analyzer, which is available, we'll see shortly, as part of the NLTK package in Python, the natural language toolkit. And it'll assign a score. I'm putting it as very red, meaning very, very, very negative sentiments. And the negative sentiment corresponds very, very closely to like the validity, the verity of the information. That's through various psychological papers. I can link to that if anybody wants. I'd have to pull it up, so I may have to share it with Fatima after the presentation if anyone's looking for that. Or, of course, you can send us emails if you have any questions. Kai, if you want to type your email in there, go ahead. Anyways, so yeah, you can send us emails if you have any questions like that, and I can send stuff out. Yeah, so essentially, there's a strong connection between sentiment, so whether whether a text is positive in sentiment or negative in sentiment, and that's strongly correlated to the verity of the information itself. So moving on to the next slide here, you'll notice I added a little bit to the bottom of this tweet. So it reads, "You have been selected to serve on a plebeian jury. To the best of your knowledge, does this information seem true?" So this is what someone who might be scrolling through Twitter might see. If a post has been flagged, then it will proceed to the jury phase. So it will get sent to a random selection of people, so that they would see it underneath the post, presumably, underneath the tweet in this case, and they would answer to the best of their knowledge, does this information seem true? Yes or no. Very straightforward question. It turns out that, yes, exactly. That's sorry, I just want to take a look there at what Edward said in the chat. That's a very important point, is that Vader does tend to be better at informal text with slang, emoji. It's very good at dealing with those types of language. Sorry, I'm just going to jump back here. So basically, you have a post, you ask a random sample of people, do you think this is misinformation? There's another paper that I can cite for you. I can't remember the author's name off the top of my head. Another psychological paper that talks about how essentially, if you ask enough people and you have a broad enough sort of reach, you can essentially take what they say to be true on situations like this to determine the truthfulness of information. Especially if you ask it, like, to the best of your knowledge, does this information seem true? You're asking them for their opinion. Does it seem true, right? They don't have to know whether it's true, because people are going to get it wrong anyways, right? But does it seem true? Does it seem okay? Obviously, as you can see here, actually, I think I got this backwards in the presentation, so I have to apologize. This should be a bunch of no's and a few yeses. I guess I got that backwards, so I'm sorry. I think I asked, does this look like or does this misinformation seem false? I thought I asked, but must have got that wrong. Anyways, so let's suppose that this is 16 no's and 3 yeses. I have to apologize for that. Sorry, Fatima. Yeah, this is I just made this up on a random tweet generator website for the purpose of the presentation. So as you can see, October 21st, 2121, I didn't make this post, and my Twitter handle is definitely not @me. So anyways, yeah, no problem. All good. So anyways, yeah, so let's suppose that there were 16 no's and 3 yeses. And so more people, quite a substantial number of people in this case, believe that this post is misinformation. So therefore, at this point in time, the action would be up to the service itself, whether it wanted to, I guess, demote the content, whether it wanted to remove the content, however it wants to go about dealing with it. But it's safe to assume at this point that this is misinformation to the or most likely to be misinformation. And the reason that we like this system of using yes and no is because, as like I was mentioning, information changes, truth changes over time. So as the knowledge of the public changes, the knowledge of the public typically aligns with the truth, right? Public typically knows, by and large, what the truth is. The truth is typically determined by the public, right? So we want to, when we ask a broad number of people, we're just gathering that sample of these people who've been selected on the jury, and that determines whether it's true or not, because they determine whether it's true or not. It's completely democratic, unlike any other form of social media moderation that's really in existence right now, like the point and shoot algorithms. They're not democratic. They don't adapt in that sense, and they aren't. They put all the trust into a group of people, and not necessarily that that's a bad thing, but it definitely makes it increases the potential for misuse, and it also just makes it more difficult because someone has to oversee that, right? This is completely automated. It's done by the people. So are there any questions so far before we switch over to Jupyter? Feel free to ask. Yes, that's true, but they are aligned. I would suggest that they are aligned. Opinion or belief versus truth or fact. When you ask people, by and large, right? If you ask enough people, I believe it's Condorcet's jury theorem. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's the theorem that you might be looking for there. But if you ask enough people, that's why juries work, right? If you ask a substantial people from a wide range of I guess backgrounds, you will get a close approximation of the truth. Now, of course, it's not the truth, but neither is point and shoot, right? So you can't really get right to the truth, but you can get pretty close. Anyways, I'm going to switch screens, but feel free to ask any questions you may have.
If I may also add to that there, Ben, when it came to what we were doing here, again, we're trying to bring a democracy of sorts to social media. And honestly, the current methods that are used for misinformation are a fairly totalitarian approach if we were to compare this to government, right? I mean, you have one company, it's the company that creates Twitter, it's Facebook, it's whoever, and you have their moderators decide what they think is true and what they don't think is true, right? Whereas when you bring it to the public itself, you're now asking, what does the public think is true, right? Which, yes, of course, doesn't necessarily mean it is true, but it does give more, I suppose, say in the matter to more people instead of just having it dictated by a select few, I suppose. So exactly,
and exactly. I just want to reiterate what Edward is saying in the chat there. Enough people is very important. Having a big background, a sample of dispersed backgrounds is better than a small sample of folks who may have biased opinions. And statistics, law of large numbers. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's a very key point to make on that. So thank you very much. I just want to confirm that everyone can see my Jupyter Notebook screen and that it's big enough for you. Sorry, Fatima. Yeah, let me just answer that there quickly. So it is picked randomly. Some of those specifics can be decided by the implementation, right? So a lot of it, the Plebeian algorithm is a very overarching sort of algorithm. A lot of that is going to be determined on the basis of, for example, whether you're implementing this on Twitter or whether you're implementing this on a site like 4chan, you're going to have completely different implementations, right? Because you want to preserve some of that site's, I guess you could say atmosphere, right? There's things that are unique to certain sites, and so really, I could honestly see some sites doing a system where it's like, if you've been verified with like a verified email address or verified phone number, then you can be part of the jury. Maybe it's randomly selected. I could see other sites, for example, something like 4chan, where it's completely anonymous, where there isn't really a way to do that, and that they don't want to add something like that, so because that would take away from the essence of 4chan, from its user base, because of course you want, can I zoom in a bit more? Of course I can. I think that's about as big as it's going to get. Hopefully that's good.
Something I wanted to also add, if I may, just before we move on there, Ben, I apologize, but yep. What you guys were talking about in terms of the sample select, or suppose who would be selected for this, that's something that we really discussed a lot as well. And something that we had done some research into was especially how do we also create a jury while also making sure that the types of recipients we're receiving are people who actually want to add a what's the word, a thought out opinion, right? It's not just, it's like people who do surveys, who are forced to do surveys, right? They'll just click whatever just to get it over with, right? We didn't want to force people to say, well, you got to do this now because it's now your duty as being a user of this application. So what we thought was a good idea in terms of implementing it, even this could be across different platforms. Like it could change, obviously. It will change, obviously, depending on the platform, as Ben has mentioned. But generally, our approach is that of a what do we call it, Ben? It was an opt-in approach, right? Where we're allowing users to simply who actually want to voice their opinions, their concerns about something, not necessarily forcing people to do that. So that was just simply just something I wanted to add on to that.
Exactly. And you'll notice that from that little visual that I put up of that little tweet on the jury phase slide, where you saw at the bottom, it says, do you think this is misinformation? Yes or no? The user could just scroll past it if they wanted to. Like, it's not like it's stopping them and saying, hey, answer this question, right? It's sort of just, at the bottom, and if it's passive, right, it's opt-in. So if they want to, that's exactly right. If they want to keep scrolling, they can keep scrolling, right? It's nothing. And of course, the thing is that's going to decrease the number of people who actually respond to it, but that's actually okay because you get more valid information, right? You just have to ask a few more people, like Edward was saying. So I'm going to move on just so we have enough time here to and feel free to keep asking questions in the chat. Kai will monitor the chat. And if there's like any sort of issues, Kai, make sure to give me a shout. Like if there's, something going wrong with people's code, totally happy to help out. So, all right. So first off, I have this Jupyter notebook opened up here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Oh, I guess you can. If I switch back to this tab here, and I know it's a bit laggy, but that's okay. You should see essentially two important files. There's this democratic www. The reason it's named that is just because it's the same file that we've used for a previous presentation. So it's might as well just keep it the same. And there's a YouTube comments data set here. A CSV file. So we're going to be analyzing these YouTube comments. The one thing I'm going to just make a note of throughout this presentation is that all of the data that you're going to be seeing, it's going to be text data from these platforms. And so you don't really know what's going to be there. I'm not, like, if you don't feel comfortable looking at some forms of text, I would advise against printing them, perhaps. Do you have access to these files? Yes. It should be on the GitHub. If you take a look at the GitHub here, there you go. It should be on there. All right. So I'm going to get started. This first block here is just going to be a basic pip install command. You can do this using Anaconda, whatever package manager you use. These are the packages we're going to use: NumPy, Matplotlib. Not going to read them out, but just take a look at these packages and make sure that you pip install them, or Conda, whatever your environment you're using. You can do it right inside of Jupyter Notebook if you'd like, using this like exclamation mark pip install. You can run terminal commands inside of Jupyter using that. Also, if some of you don't have access to Jupyter Notebook, you can take a look into Google Colab. That's a good, it should be able to open up that file, and it connects right to your Google Drive. So if you have trouble with that, that's a good option. All right, so just to run it, I press Shift-Enter. I'm not going to really go over that too much. I've got some imports here. You can take a look. I'm going to see if I can copy this into, awesome, glad to know. I'm just going to copy these imports so you don't have to type them all out because they're quite lengthy. Awesome, good to know. So there we go. So we've got all these imports. These are essentially just importing all the packages that we just talked about. I'll let you read through them on your own time. There's not really a lot to it. It's just your standard sort of typical natural language processing type stuff, data cleaning, all that sort of thing. From here on, I think I'm typing most of it. But if there's anything that you want posted into the chat there, let me know, and I will make sure to do that. If you're like, running behind, you want me to scroll up, let me know. So first thing you're going to do, we're going to do some basic declarations. First thing we want to do is download. We want to download from NLTK the Vader lexicon. Essentially, this is going to give us the, you can almost think of it like a dictionary that assigns different words to different sentiments. So it's essentially a dictionary that assigns phrases to sentiment. And that's what we were saying earlier about the Vader sentiment analyzer. We're going to create a sentiment analyzer object as well. Sentiment intensity analyzer. I want to make sure I spell that right. And then we're going to, I'm just going to set some matplotlib parameters just so that it looks a little bit nicer here in matplotlib. Fig size. Also, if anyone sees me typing anything wrong, I am not the best at like precisely typing. I sometimes type a bit too fast. So if you see me make a typo or something, give me a shout. All right. So you'll see this little bit of a pop-up there. That's totally fine. That's normal. Just tells you, you may actually see a little bit more than that if you're running this for the first time, because I already have Vader installed. So you'll probably see a little bit more. May take a minute, but that's okay. All right. So I've got most of this these notes printed off just so I can remember what I'm doing here. We're going to import, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to deal with YouTube. So we're going to do the YouTube comments. That data set that I have is just a big collection of just a massive set of YouTube comments, which I don't think it's quite that big, but it's a decent sized set of YouTube comments. I'm going to use the pandas read CSV function to take a look at this CSV file. I'm going to do error bad lines equals false. I don't really mind if we drop some lines just because there's enough data in it that it's not that huge of a deal. If you were doing this on a more large scale, you'd want to make sure that you're obviously getting all the data you can, but in this case scenario, it's not a huge issue. I think it's Python. It seems right to me. So you see it's skipping a bunch of lines, and that's fine. Yep. All right. Yeah, just things that have some issues get skipped, which is fine. It's not a huge issue. I've included this in the original file, I believe, just because I didn't want to have to type all this out. because I'm bound to make a typo trying to type that. Essentially, this is going to remove links. This first regex substitution is going to remove all the links from a piece of text. It's just a function, removes all the links from a piece of text. So it substitutes this regex to nothing. So it just deletes the links. Now, of course, you can handle them different ways. This is just the way we decided to. We're using this package called the emoji. Essentially, it removes the emojis, but it as you can see, this one has a bunch of different functionalities. This one is to replace with a description. So it takes the text and it replaces any emojis with like a textual description of the emojis. So it's like, I don't know if it's a picture of like, I don't know, an angry face, it'll go like angry face, right? But the reason we're doing that, just because I think it's easier than trying to deal with emojis. You can, I believe Vader deals with emojis. So that would be essentially, essentially that we're just doing this for sake of ease. And you should have access to this code. Fatima, I just read your question. I think that's a good one to answer sort of out loud. Essentially, you're going to want to really, there's not a hard and fast rule for that. One of the main reasons that I'm okay with dropping this is just because it's, yes, exactly. That's right, Edward. Anyway, so the big reason that I'm dropping those is mostly just because it's easier for a demonstration like this than trying to actually go through and deal with these more, I guess, niche issues. I want to get to like the main course of this of the analysis right off the bat. If you had enough data, it sort of depends on the application. If you just wanted to do like a preliminary analysis of some data just to see, hey, how does this sort of look? Skipping bad lines is not going to cause too much of an issue as long as you have like a substantial amount of data. Like you can see here, we have like 200,000 lines. I'm not worried about losing, like, I don't know, how many lines did we skip here? Like maybe 30 is my guess. It's like, I'm not worried about losing 30 lines, right? But I guess, yeah, that's sort of, it's sort of something you have to think about when you're approaching a problem like this. Is it okay to skip? What should I do with them if things, aren't playing nice? That sort of a thing. So case by case basis. All right. So you've imported your data sets. Let's go ahead and do, I've got some weird stuff going on here. I'm sorry, I appear to have misplaced something here. This is weird. All right, well, I guess let's just get started here. Let's do a print df.head. So we're going to just take a look at what the data looks like. I want to take a look at that. I'm going to print a few new lines. And then I'm going to print, let's take a look at the columns. So just like what the columns are. Columns. Now, in case any of you don't know, using f strings here, I'm assuming most of you know f strings in Python. This little equal sign is actually kind of nice. I'll show you what it does in a second, but it's one of my favorite little known features, I think, of Python, or like lesser known, I should say, is that little equal sign. Just a nice quality of life thing. I'll go number of comments, df.shape 0. So again, this is all basic pandas. So as you can see, there's your this is what the data looks like. You've got a video ID column, comments column, a likes column, and a replies column. And as you can see, what this equals sign does is it actually just goes df.columns equals, and it shows it there, so you kind of know what's instead of just printing index, instead of just printing this highlighted bit here, it shows this extra df.columns equals. I always like that. It's a nice quality of life thing. And then number of comments. So as you can see, we have just south of 700,000. That's a lot. Even after dropping things, that's what we have. So I'm not worried. We have enough data to be suffice. Yeah. So in that case, let's move on. So all texts is going to equal the set of the data frame at comment text dot toList, and we're just going to take, just because now I'm just going to take the first the top 1,000 elements of this list, and the reason I'm doing that is because when we actually ran this in like real life, it took about an hour, I think, to do like all, maybe not quite, it maybe took like half an hour to do all 700 or so, 700,000 of those of these comments. So I don't want to just sit here and wait for that long. So we're just going to take the first, we're only worried about the comment text, so we're doing that. We're going to get the set in case there's any duplicates, throw it into a list because lists are nice, easier to deal with. And then we're just taking the top, just the first 1,000, just to get a bit of a sample of them. In the real world, you would want to probably do all of them. So results, just going to equal an empty list. We're going to go through each line in the texts in a for loop. If type of that line is not a string, so essentially if it's like some weird, like, maybe it's a number, maybe it's like an NA, like an AND value, I'm not going to worry about it in this presentation. This would be where you would deal with it, deal with nans or ints or whatever. I'm just going to continue. I'm just going to skip it. If it's something that I don't want to deal with right now, just because we have that's out of the scope essentially of this presentation. So we're just going to continue on the loop. If the line is empty, or so if it's just an empty string, or it's a nan, or it actually has the word nan, then we're just going to skip it. Just to, again, same thing. In a real world setting, you would deal with that if you wanted to. Actually, you would probably still just skip ones that are just an empty message that, yeah, there's no reason to run some sentiments on it. So line equals remove links, translate emoji. So this is the, we're just going to apply this function that I wrote up there that you should all have with the regex and the emoji, just to clean it up a little bit. Then let's grab the poll score. So this is just going to be an object. It's going to contain the polarity score. So we're going to take that sentiment intensity analyzer, and we're going to run in that. So obviously that's just I guess a module of NLTK. So we're going to we're going to use the polarity scores method on this line of text. So just run the string through that function. And again, I'm just going to do another one of those continue lines. If the polarity score, so I'll tell you sort of how the data looks. I should probably do that first here. So this poll score object, it contains, I believe it's a dictionary, or it's a dictionary-like object of some sort. I'm pretty sure it's just a dictionary though. And so essentially what it contains in terms of columns is it's going to contain, or labels, it's going to contain a neg label, which is how negative the post is. It's going to contain a new label, an EU, which is how neutral the post is. It's going to contain a positivity label, and it's going to contain a compound. And I believe it also contains the text itself. So it has a few different things in there. So we're just going to grab the compound label, because that sort of averages all of the negative, the neutral, and the positive. It takes an average of sorts and determines what the overall score is. And so that score is going to range from -1 to +1. It's really handy in that sense. And so if that score is 0, we are going to continue. Now, of course, this just means that either it means that the text that you put through is perfectly neutral, in which case skipping it isn't a huge issue, or it means that the sentiment analyzer just didn't recognize enough of the text to make any meaningful conclusion. It's just more of an inconclusive. And in that case, you could look into what other, various other forms of sentiment analysis that you could perform, various other techniques you might want to use. In this demonstration, I'm just going to skip it. That would be more of a, if somebody were to just type like hello into and make a tweet that just says hello, that's not positive sentiment, that's not negative sentiment. It's kind of too hard to tell what that is. So you might just want to skip that. Again, depending on how much data you have. So full score at text is going to equal line. So I'm just going to set the, oh yeah, actually, sorry, never mind. It doesn't actually come with a text. So we're setting it right now. We're adding a text in there. So we're just throwing the text in there. And then results.append. So we're just going to throw these poll scores into a big list of results. So it's just going to be a list of dictionary-like objects. That's our for loop. So I'm going to create a data frame called df_NLP. It's going to equal a new data frame from records. It's going to take the results. So it's just going to take that list of dictionaries and turn it into a pandas data frame, because data frames are a lot easier to use. We're going to grab we're going to set a new label column. Just going to set it to 0 by default. We're going to do df_NLP.lock, and we're going to set that to whenever, if the compound is greater than 0, add st results. Thank you. Thanks a lot. That helps. So if it's greater than 0.1, then we're just going to use the label. This is just going to tell us if it's just so we can have a broad idea of whether it's positive or negative in sentiment, or neutral, which is going to be 0. So positive in sentiment in terms of label is just going to be between +1 and +0.1. Neutral in label is going to be between +0.1, -0.1. And then negative in label is going to be between -0.1 and -1. So it's sort of 3 chunks there. Going to do the same thing for compound for the negative label, just like I talked about. So we're just doing this just as a way to essentially help visualize this. Visualize sort of, whether it's broadly positive, broadly negative, helps to see that at a glance. And then I'm just going to print the head of that. Actually, you know what? I'll just do it without the print, because I think Jupyter Notebook makes it look a little nicer. An attribute error. What's my attribute error? Set has no to list. What? Yeah, it does. Why doesn't set have to list? Anybody see any errors there? I don't think that, pretty sure set has a to list method, doesn't it? Oh, no.
That parenthesis, remove it. Right.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's,
that's
like, thank you. There we go. Yep, just one inside the brackets there. Turning the series into a list, and then, yeah, and then the set. Taking the set that makes a lot more sense. Oh, and I need the need to move this inside as well, because you can't. Yeah, can't. Wow, there's a lot of errors. Did I not run this code? I guess I didn't run this code. Sorry about that. There we go. That took a while. So, as you can see, here's the data frame. You've got your negativity, your neutrality, your positivity. Compound score, as you can see, runs on each of these three scores run on 0 to 1, on the range 0 to 1. Compound runs on -1 to +1. And then there's our label. So you can see at a glance, oh, this is relatively negative. This is relatively positive, so on. All right. So let's visualize this, because it's nice to just look at a table, but sometimes you want to actually do a bit more with it. So let's take a look at a hist plot. I'm just using Seaborn for this. So we're just going to pass in the NLP object. I'm going to do the X to be compound. So we're just using the compound label. The number of bins we're going to have is 25. Just that's the number that I've tried to work. You can play around with these. I want to have a KDE on. And I have a color here that's sort of a YouTube color. Yeah. All right. So I'm just going to set some more attributes here. I'm just going to set a label, the label attribute, the X label, to compounded positivity score on -1 to 1. I want to take a look at the compound score. Let's take a look at, let's set the Y label to frequency. Let's set the title to something like, I'll just do YouTube negativity, or I should say sentiment analysis. There you go. So then what I'll do is, if you weren't using, I believe Jupyter Notebook just does this automatically for us. Yeah. If you weren't using Jupyter Notebook, if you're doing this in Python, you would want to do, or just like base Python, you'd want to do plt.show. But you don't need to worry about that. For this case, we're just going to just do it directly in Jupyter, just like this. As you can see, there's our sentiment analysis results. So in this data set, at least that we have, you'll notice that there's a lot more positively sentiment texts than there are negatively sentiment texts. All right. So we've got some, yeah, we did lose quite a bit. And I was quite aware of that. Just like even looking at the frequency, I knew that we were going to lose quite a bit, but mostly just for demonstration purposes. You would, like I said, this isn't the most accurate, but you would want to, this is more just a warm introduction, I guess you could say. Yeah. All right. So in that case, I have 2 more planned. We don't have a lot of time. This happened to me on the last presentation too. Would, on the last viz line, yeah. Yeah, exactly. You can definitely do that. I think it's just like this. Yeah. Doesn't really matter, but you're right, it looks nicer. So I have 2 left. I have Reddit and I have 4chan. I'd like to hear from you, from the audience. What do you guys want to see? Do you want to see 4chan? Do you want to see Reddit? They're both sort of the same, and I'll give you the final code for both of them. So, yeah.
Can you scroll up? What seaborn method do you use again?
I used histplot.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, just a basic histogram.
Hmm.
Really, I mean, any visualization is good. I just sort of wanted to visualize the data, just to sort of help get an idea of what we're looking at here.
I guess we can jump into Reddit, Benjamin.
Reddit? Perfect. Yeah. Sounds good. So I've got this function, which I believe I got directly from, I think it's actually directly off of URL-lib's website, if I recall correctly. Essentially what this, it's off of PushShift's, this is an API, so off of PushShift's website. It allows you to essentially, PushShift allows you to take a look at, essentially at any Reddit post that you want. So you can specify directly in this, in the link, you can specify what time bounds you're looking for. So an after, a before. You can sort by various things. You can add all these, look at subreddit. You can look at the size, essentially. You can look at a ton of different, I guess, you can sort by a bunch of different, different score thresholds. So like how liked the post, I guess upvoted the post is on Reddit. You can sort by a bunch of different factors like that using PushShift. So really it's not, it's a really cool website. I'd recommend you take a look into it. But all this code is directly from PushShift. I'm going to scroll back here. It's all directly from PushShift, so I'm not going to fully go over it. Essentially what we're doing, essentially this code here, has your try catch blocks, in case the website has some errors, I suppose. But overall, it's just going to grab all of the headlines, throw them into this headline collection. And then it's going to, so we're just going to be analyzing the headlines. That's essentially it. This is just a function directly from the PushShift API. So you can read more into it on your own time. You can specify the subreddit. Does anyone have a favorite subreddit that's like somewhat popular? Or if we want to just stick with politics, we can just do politics, r/politics. Someone tells me something different, then I'll change it. So, all right. So essentially, we're going to start by scraping from Reddit. All right, cool. The first, so this may take a little bit of time just because it's scraping, but we're going to go through 0 to 10, run this 10 times. Hard to type. Previous timestamp. So we're going to grab the previous timestamp, and we're going to take time now minus date time dot time delta days equals limit delta. Ooh, I'm getting cut off on this paper. This is bad. My print didn't work very well, so my notes aren't really with me. I'm going to, that's unfortunate. I don't have, is that, oh, thank you. Is that actually just my code? Ha. Thank you. That totally helps. All right. Thank you so much. So there's our code. I'll just run through it quick then. It's so hard to see on my printout, so thank you so much. All right, so essentially, we're just, we're grabbing the previous timestamp through each loop, grabbing the current timestamp, so determining the difference there. Thank you so much. I might have gotten rid of it, reverted the changes back to a previous commit on GitHub for this presentation. So yeah, all right. So yeah, you're grabbing previous, current timestamp, full collection, essentially. It's going to load the results. So that's using this function up here that we didn't really talk about. You can find more about it on PushShift's website. Grab the headlines, limit delta. Again, these are all helpful to continue to the next iteration of the loop. It's really, again, most of this is going to come off of PushShift. It's basic stuff. Well, it's not really. It's stuff that I'm not fully versed in, I should say. Just the use of that specific API. So then we're going to do some sentiment analysis using NLTK and Vader. All right. So we're going to do just some basic work, just like we did earlier. It's actually going to be pretty much identical. So I'm just going to sort of go through it quick here. So it's essentially the same code. Just going to change like a few words, but again, oh shoot, I cannot type apparently. I'm just reading, actually I'm reading off of paper, and so it's kind of messing with my head a little bit. So we're just going to do this same code here. We're going to, just grab the polarity score of the line. If the polarity score at the compound is 0, same thing. We're just going to continue, just like we did earlier. If it's S for results. Wow, twice, same error. Thank you. It's hard to type and look at different things at the same time, so thank you very much. All right. So continuing on there, poll score, we're going to set the headline. Instead of text, I'm just going to call it headline. Same thing though, set it equal to the line. And then results.append, poll score. There we go. Same, it's a similar loop. We just got rid of the first little bit because I guess this is going to be a little bit more of a formal type of a thing. So we're dealing with, we're going to deal with the emojis as they come. There are going to be less emojis on Reddit, as I found, but nonetheless, we're going to deal with the emojis using Vader, and we're going to, what was the other thing that we got rid of? I think it was links. Yeah, we're just going to skim over links. Vader will not assign a sentiment score to the links, so it's going to look uglier to like visually see the like if we print off the head, it's going to look a little bit uglier, but that's not a huge issue. Let's print the NLP's head. Actually, I don't want to print. I'm just going to do it. I learned recently that it looks a lot nicer. Somebody told me it looks so much nicer if you just don't have the print block. Headlines is not defined. Why did I not define headlines? Oh, I didn't run this code. Like I said, this one takes a minute. The scraping. So yeah, just because it has to go through and actually scrape from the Reddit API, or from the PushShift API, it takes a little bit of time. We're just gathering real-time data. So that's another thing too to note in terms of like the validity of this data is that we just did that over a short period of time. So realistically, we may not have like the most accurate full-time data. This is just like, what did we scrape for like 30 seconds or so? We didn't scrape for very long. So anyways, does this look the same? Weird. Maybe I'm just mistaken. Anyways, same deal. Got your results. And then let's visualize them, I suppose. Same sort of visualization as before. Do we need to do the thresholds here too? Yeah. Yeah, let's do the thresholds. Oh yeah, that's why. Yeah, I didn't reset the object. Thank you for catching that. Wow, I'm tired tonight. So we're going to, yeah, we're just going to do the label is equal to 0. We're going to do the NLP.block. We're going to do, actually, you know what? I'm just going to copy the same code from above because instead of typing this all out, I'm bound to make an error on that. There we go. Just going to copy and paste from above. You can do the same. In programming it, well, it does hurt sometimes to copy and paste, but it always pays off to do smart copies and pastes. As long as you're like smart about it, you should be fine. As long as you're like knowingly like, oh yeah, this little chunk of code, I know I'm just repeating. Never hurts to copy and paste that. This makes more sense. I was like, why was the headlines showing the exact same thing? Yeah, Biden tests negative for COVID. Trump's campaign stream, yeah. Bunch of different scores. You'll see some of them are neutral, some of them are negative, some of them are positive, so on. Let's visualize the results. So, this point, it's the same idea, equals sns.histplot. We're going to do data equals dfnlp. It's a very similar thing. I'm just going to do a quick histogram, compound. Do 25 bins again. Turn on the KDE because I like to see that. Sort of helps me to visualize it at least. I'm going to do the Reddit color. I think this is the Reddit color. I didn't memorize that. I have that written down. I'm not that smart. So, all right. So set the X label equal to, I'll just call it compounded positivity score. I will let Kai answer that. It's too big for me to read right now. I don't know if that's a question or if that's just a comment. That might just be a comment. I'll just call this title of this Reddit r/politics. I think that's a comment on reppers. Frequency of positivity from API. There we go. Cool. Just set a nice title there. And again, if you were doing this on something like, how do you say, on just Python, plt.show. You could also do plt.save if you want. That'll save it to like a file. I think you put in a file name. You have to look up the syntax of it, but I usually just do plt.show. It opens it up in a separate window. All right. Anyways, I will run that. I have an invalid syntax. Forgot a comma. Also forgot a comma. And I'll do the semicolon there for you. All right. Thank you. All right, so there's your, you'll notice in this case, Reddit is a lot more negative than it is positive. Again, actually, we should probably take a look at what the length here is. Oh, someone talking? I don't know. Can hear if someone was asking a question or something. Should be good.
Well,
anyways,
what Reddit topic you search for. If you search for Baby Yoda, it would probably be more positive. Yeah, Reddit Baby
exactly.
Yoda is
Totally
a very popular one.
Totally depends. Exactly. Yeah, and politics. Obviously, politics can be pretty negative. So it honest. You're very right. It depends a lot on the. Yeah, it depends on the data itself, right? It depends on where you get the data. If you were implementing this on a more wide scale, like a more broad scale, you might be implementing this across like all of Reddit, maybe. I don't know. That's a pretty big scale, but that would give you a better picture. But it's really hard to do that through APIs. It's not the easiest thing to do in the world. So you kind of have to be, reason I picked politics for this one just by default is mostly because we know what it's going to be, right? We know sort of it's going to be more negative in sentiment, fairly contrasting. So if I print, I think this will give me how many rows we have. Yeah, so there's 600 rows. In this case, it's like we did get rid of, or we didn't get quite as many data points as I would have liked either. Same as the last one, but in this case, again, like you can see, it only goes up to 40 on the histogram, so or the axis there. So, if you let it run for a bit longer, you would have probably gotten more results. If we had more access to data, you would have gotten more results. But obviously, a lot of this is data dependent on what you have. But I hope that this presentation, at least thus far, this workshop, has given you a bit of an idea of how this algorithm works on a very I guess higher level scale, higher level scope. I hope that this helped to sort of solidify. Maybe you got some ideas of where you could use the Plebeian algorithm. Like I said, it's not just limited to social media, right? We're currently working on some projects of implementing the Plebeian algorithm to an academic peer review type of a system, right? It's totally applicable anywhere. There's and of course, in that situation, I think it was Edward who was talking earlier about the difference between Vader and TextBlob. In that case, you might want to be looking at something like TextBlob to analyze some more formal text. But obviously, a lot of this can be tweaked. A lot of this is more of an implementation issue. Like we said, the Plebeian algorithm is a very, very vast, very, very vast and wide-reaching algorithm, right? So there's a lot of different use cases. And yeah, if you have any questions, we're happy to answer.
What do you find with 4chan? Is it 4chan or 4chan? Do you find those people? They're like free. It's like anarchy almost. Do you find it? I mean, what do you find there?
Oddly enough,
is everyone pessimistic there or what?
Well, oddly enough, it's kind of surprising. We've ran analysis on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Reddit, 4chan, and Parler. I think that's all of them. And we found that, at least from what we've looked at, it seems that oddly enough, by and large, if you average all of the major, at least Reddit subreddits with all of the major 4chan boards, the 4chan boards are actually more positive in sentiment. What you can do is, in further analysis, you can take, because it's always going to be bimodal. It's always going to be like, if anyone doesn't know what bimodal is, it's like 2 peaks, 2 maxes. So it's going to be bimodal, typically, as far as we found in terms of the KDE. You can draw a line on the KDE from one peak to the other and get the slope of that. Get like a normalized slope based on the, you'd have to normalize it based on the scale, but get a normalized slope of like the average sort of difference between the 2 peaks. And taking that score, that would give you like a relative positivity or negativity in terms of like, a sort of ratio, if you want to think of it that way. Not particularly, it's a slope. And that's essentially will, that'll give you an idea of by and large how positive or negative that specific service is. But what I found interesting was, if you, like I said, if you combine all of the 4chan boards and you combine all the Reddit boards, or I guess subreddits, the Reddit by and large is actually more negative in sentiment than the 4chan is. Probably my guess on that is probably because 4chan people who are on 4chan are typically the same type of minded people. That's my guess on why that is. Whereas on somewhere like Reddit, you're going to have a lot more back and forth, differing opinions, right? 4chan seems to be much more concise. But then again, if you look at a service like Parler, it's not actually, it's a lot more negative. It's quite a bit negative. And so, if I recall correctly. And so, yeah, I think that I think it's kind of strange how I think 4chan is an interesting example. I think 4chan is like, I feel like 4chan is an ideal type of a system, except it's not implemented very well. It's got like the ephemerality, it's got the anonymity. There's quite a few. If they were to implement a Plebeian algorithm, I could almost see it becoming, or a system like that becoming a little like a more democratic type of a system. I think that the Plebeian algorithm would work very well with 4chan, I guess, in short. Probably one of the better implementations.
Can you give a quick demo of your, I think you have some kind of GUI on there. I mean, you probably don't have the code where you can just type in an interface. You could say like, you could say something like, Pope John is our president, is the United States president. And they'll say, no, that's not true. Or just silliness, and they'll say that's not true. And then something that's really painfully obvious, and it'll say that's really obvious. And then you get something in between.
Yep.
It's
we actually made one of those.
Come out with stuff, but it's really neat to have it come in with like natural language, ad hoc almost. Can you give a demo real quick, or give us a URL? I forget what that.
I will give you a URL.
So that we can have fun with it, before we go.
Yeah, you can go play around. It'll deal with the sentiment. So it'll deal with the flag phase. And that's another thing that we should really note. Let me see if I can find it in my GitHub here. Let's see if I have it even here. May not be. I may have to find it. Either I'm missing it but I'll get it for you. One of the things though to note is that we've only really coded the flag phase. We haven't actually done anything on the
jury.
I can't find it right now. Yeah, on the jury phase at all. For some reason I can't find this.
Well, and the reason for that, I think you've already mentioned it, Ben, is the fact that the jury phase is certainly something that we would have to figure out when we implement this with an actual social company, right? Because that could take a different form for different companies, right? I mean, for instance, we had the idea for something like a Twitter or Facebook, the opt-in system we had mentioned, where we're having users to comment on or to talk about whether something whether they think something is truthful or not, would be something similar to like a like button. But that might be different for something like YouTube, or something different for 4chan, right? Especially if you're talking about things like 4chan or things that are Reddit, right? That are fairly unique and kind of different platforms altogether, like especially with 4chan and how it's so ephemeral, right? So that's certainly something that we haven't gotten around to, mostly due to the fact that that's really, as we mentioned, something that's more in the implementation process when we actually are implementing this into these systems themselves.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I'm just looking for that code snippet that I have of the making use of the implement, or where you can input your text. Actually, I know where it is. I think it's on our website. Let me see if I can find it for you. If I can't find it, I will share it to Fatima, and I'm sure she'll pass it on to the rest of you all.
And does anyone
Awesome.
have any
Sounds
questions
good.
for Kai or Benjamin? Please feel free to ask.
I found the link. Okay, I will throw a download, or like a link to our website where you can download it there. Yeah, that's just for the flag phase.
What does
Hopefully
Aurora
that helps.
Borealis and Team 82 have to do with this whole thing? Is this how this all started? Or...
Yeah. So essentially, we started working on this as part of a competition, which is where the Team 82 comes from. Aurora Borealis, we've actually done quite a bit of research as a team. So Kai and I are both part of Team Aurora Borealis, as well as two other undergraduate researchers. So we've been doing research for the past about a year now, Kai, maybe a year and a bit.
Well, we started in March with.
So I guess it's less than a year.
Yeah, less than a year. But yeah, we started with Team Aurora Borealis. We've done 4, I suppose, data challenges, you could call them, different types of challenges. The first one was on the environment, and then we had the third one was actually where we got this problem and developed the Plebeian algorithm, and we won first place for developing this algorithm. And Ben had posted the jury phase. There's also our manuscript is attached to our website as well as a video of us actually going into further detail as well. So we've got it all kind of covered on our website, all the details about our project, about the algorithm itself. So yeah, you can figure out more about us.
Currently in publication.
Yes, it's very exciting stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yep. That's
Very nice.
Junior, which is
I
really
do
exciting.
have a question for the two of you besides the presentation. So on LinkedIn, I saw you guys are promoting the high school big data challenge for kids. Is that just limited to Canada, or can kids from the US No.
Yep.
So just
anyone
for Canada?
Can join. No.
Anyone can join.
No, anyone can join.
Awesome.
Yep. It's all open. Yep.
Awesome.
I'm the program management team lead at STEM Fellowship. So I oversee all of the back end of the data, the high school and undergraduate big data challenges. So if anyone's interested in joining, give me a shout.
I can share the details in our session chat. And I know lots of parents, they have high school kids. So if anyone's interested, they'll definitely reach out to you.
That'd be awesome. Sounds good.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kai and Ben.
Thank you so much, Brett.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly.
And I think that would be a great project, especially to do with social media, because you have so many people that you can now take this data from, right? And it might be like a survey, like what is your, when you hear this word, what do you feel, right? It could be something along those lines. And that would be a great way of helping to really define and help our system really grow and develop from that. So that's a great idea. Thank you.
Wow. That's phenomenal.
Incredible. That's really incredible. Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you for letting us know.
Thanks for. Sounds good. I'm just
Definitely.
I'm gonna grab the link to the presentation. There's a few hidden slides, but that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great idea.
And yeah, you can take a look here. I think this will work. I hope. Just some basic. If anyone wants to reference those slides, you can go ahead. No problem.
Yeah, I'm just making a doc for all these things you shared, so I'll put it in our other student chat. So just in case if anyone missed it, they can grab it from there too.
Perfect.
Awesome.
That's excellent.
And if you guys don't mind me sharing your guys' LinkedIn information with the candidates,
Feel free.
Go for it.
awesome. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Feel free to send us LinkedIn messages if you have any questions. We're always happy to take questions or have chats or whatever. Yeah.
Love to network. Yeah, we're up here in cold and isolated Canada. You know, we want to meet some other people from different parts of the world. You know, so yeah. Don't worry, we don't bite. You know, we're
definitely. Next time you guys are in Atlanta, Brother Mo will take you out for Moroccan tea for sure.
Yeah.
No, that's understandable. That's understandable. Oh, well, absolutely. Well, I mean, yeah, no, for sure. I mean, honestly, here in Thunder Bay, like we live in a part of Canada that doesn't speak too much French ourselves. So, I mean, I know Ben's not much of a French speaker, and I'm kind of mostly a secondary speaker myself. But yeah, no, absolutely, it's be a pleasure. Cool, awesome. We appreciate it.
Ben, I was wondering, will you share the code with us? Or?
Yeah, I will. So I will. What I'll do is if you go back to that link, give me like half an hour after this presentation or so, but I will push a new version up to that link just with the final code. And I'll also include the 4chan code into it as well, just so you have that if you want it.
Which link is that?
That is the GitHub link. I will, let me see if I can find it real quick here. Just gonna scroll up in the chat. Oh, did someone post it?
Yeah, I just posted it.
Just that link, just the GitHub.
Thanks.
No problem.
Just want to thank you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time out. Good luck to both of you. You guys have a great future ahead of you. So thank you so much.
Really appreciate
Thank you.
You guys have a great night.
you as well. Thank you again.
Thank you.
It's been awesome.
Thanks for having us.